My name is Charlie.
That poster sold 12 million copies, and the woman in it spent the next 30 years proving it had absolutely nothing to do with who she actually was. One of them built a fashion empire worth more than any role she ever played. One of them survived cancer, open heart surgery, and 3 marriages, and still the full story has never been told. One of them is gone, and the way the headlines got it wrong tells you everything about how this industry saw her. This is the real Charlie's Angels, and none of it looks like the show. Stay with us, because the last story on this list is the one that the industry never saw coming, and that nobody on this cast would have predicted either.
It's Charlie Angel. Time to go to work.
Number 1. Farrah Fawcett, and what the poster never told you. She was 29 when she joined Charlie's Angels in 1976 as Jill Monroe. She stayed for 1 season as a main cast member, then left in a departure that generated more press coverage than most actors accumulate across entire careers. 6 guest appearances followed, each one negotiated, not automatic. And the poster, that specific poster, the one that sold 12 million copies and became perhaps the single most reproduced image of an entire American decade, was already everywhere before the first season had even finished airing. It wasn't something the studio manufactured carefully. It was something that happened almost accidentally and then couldn't be stopped. That distinction matters because it says something about what she was actually dealing with for the rest of her career. An image she never asked to be, attached to a name she was still trying to define. Then she spent the next 30 years doing the one thing that image made it almost impossible for people to believe she was capable of. The Burning Bed arrived in 1984. If you understand what that film actually required, what it asked emotionally, physically, and reputationally of the person at its center, then you understand why it changed the conversation permanently. Emmy nomination. Audiences who believed they understood exactly who Farrah Fawcett was found themselves watching someone they had genuinely never encountered before. 4 Emmy nominations across her full career. 3 Golden Globe nominations. Stage work that earned reviews no one expected from someone the industry had already decided it understood completely. Her marriage to Lee Majors ended in 1982. A son named Redmond. Years alongside Ryan O'Neal. Something real, complex, and far more human than tabloid shorthand ever captured. Understood best by the people inside it, and misread consistently by everyone reporting from the outside. The final chapter she wrote herself, on camera, without softening the frame, without allowing the story to be shaped by someone else's editorial instincts. Farrah's story remains hard to watch. That difficulty was entirely deliberate. She made choices in those final months that had nothing to do with how she would be remembered, and everything to do with what she believed was worth saying out loud. Farrah Fawcett passed away on June 25, 2009, at age 62. The poster sold millions of copies. What she built after it is the reason, 16 years later, the loss still lands.
Bruce is no loss. Not when you're wired to a Samoan warrior and an Indian lawyer.
Jaclyn Smith, the only angel who never left. She appeared in all 115 episodes, every single one. From the pilot to the finale, Kelly Garrett was there, steady, elegant, the emotional center that nobody discussed at length precisely because she never generated the kind of drama that fills reunion specials. She was 31 when it began. Today, in 2026, Jaclyn Smith is 81 years old. What she built in the decades since is, by almost any honest measure, the most improbable success story on this entire list, and the one the industry least saw coming. In 1985, she launched a fashion line through Kmart. Significant portions of Hollywood found this somewhere between embarrassing and incomprehensible. Critics dismissed it without much deliberation. Insiders predicted it would dissolve within a season or 2. The industry waited, with some confidence, for it to fail. It didn't fail. 40 years later, it's still there. A timeline that exceeds most television careers by a decade or more. The fashion line outlasted the networks that canceled shows those same critics considered serious. It outlasted the careers of the people who dismissed it. It outlasted, frankly, most of the certainties that the industry held about what a former primetime actress could and couldn't build. A Golden Globe nomination. Prestige television movies throughout the 90s. She reprised Kelly Garrett twice, in 2003 and again in 2019. 40-plus years on, and the role still fit. She has been married 4 times, finding lasting equilibrium with Brad Allen since 1997. She faced breast cancer in 2003 and converted it into sustained public advocacy rather than a single announcement. 2 children. One empire Hollywood still isn't sure how to account for. Kelly Garrett was the quiet heart of the Townsend Agency. Jaclyn Smith proved that same quiet consistency, applied to something the industry underestimated, could build something that outlasted every other Angel's most prominent headline.
Yep, but the one we have to worry about is number 19.
Number 3. Cheryl Ladd, the one who replaced a legend and survived it. What she was asked to do in 1977 was almost cruel in its premise. Step into a role just vacated by the most famous woman on American television. Play the younger sister of a character the entire country was still actively grieving. Smile as though you belong there, as though the comparison isn't happening, as though the audience isn't measuring every single frame. At 26, Cheryl Ladd said yes and appeared in 87 episodes across 4 consecutive seasons. She didn't merely survive the comparison, she outlasted it entirely. By the time the show ended, she wasn't Farrah's replacement anymore. She was Cheryl Ladd. What came after surprised people who assumed she'd recede with the show. Her debut album actually charted. Then came television movies, including one where she portrayed Princess Diana, one of the most scrutinized women of the 20th century, a role that required a precision and emotional restraint that the people who cast her clearly understood better than the people who doubted the decision. Then Broadway. Then, decades later, a major studio film alongside Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie. In 2026, at 75, she is still working, still accumulating credits on projects that aren't coasting on nostalgia. Her second marriage, which began in 1981, has now endured more than 44 years. She has spoken openly about a private battle, something that doesn't appear in the glamour photographs, something that runs beneath a career that always looked, from the outside, completely effortless. She became an advocate because of it, and the advocacy has outlasted the headlines. Cheryl Ladd replaced a legend and refused, at every subsequent turn, to be defined by the replacement. What's coming next is the story nobody on this cast talks about. 3 decades of battles that would have ended most careers permanently, and the part that nobody in Hollywood ever fully reported.
Come on. That was a long time ago and they were very short.
Number 4. Kate Jackson, the one whose full story has never been told. She was the senior angel before the term meant anything. Already an established actress from The Rookies, already 28 when production began, Kate Jackson played Sabrina Duncan, the sharp, unsentimental pragmatist who drove the investigations while the others supplied the glamour that sold the show. She appeared in 69 episodes and left after 3 seasons. The reasons have been discussed, disputed, and reframed across nearly 50 years. The definitive account doesn't exist, and may never. What's certain is that she walked away from one of the most successful shows on American television while it was still at the height of its cultural moment. A decision that required either remarkable confidence or something more complicated, depending on the version of events you find most credible. Another show appeared almost immediately, Scarecrow and Mrs. King, which became a genuine hit. A new co-star, a chemistry audiences responded to immediately, a Golden Globe nomination to confirm she hadn't lost whatever it was she had. But the personal story underneath is considerably harder to hold. 3 marriages that didn't last. Breast cancer, defeated, then it returned in the same decade before she'd had time to fully process surviving the first time. A separate congenital heart defect that required open-heart surgery in 1995. Financial difficulties that exist in the record but are rarely mentioned alongside the career achievements, as though the two belong in separate conversations. She has 1 adopted son, Charles. In 2026, at 78, she lives outside the industry's attention, either by choice or consequence, depending on the account you trust. Kate Jackson survived an accumulation of things that would have permanently ended most careers, and she did it without ever making the survival into a performance.
We have finished our business discussions, I remember, Alexis.
Number 5. John Forsythe, the man no one ever saw. He was 58 years old when he took the job, and the job required him to do something almost no actor would willingly accept: never appear on screen. Not once. For 5 full seasons, John Forsythe was Charlie Townsend, the voice behind every mission, the presence that gave the show its center of gravity, and millions fell for a man they never actually saw. He appeared in all 115 episodes. Then the show ended. And what came next is something that almost nobody in the industry predicted. At 65, when most careers are already receding, he landed one of the defining roles in American primetime. Dynasty's Blake Carrington was bigger, louder, and far more visible than Charlie ever was. It earned him a Golden Globe Award, 3 Emmy nominations, and ran for 8 years. He became the household name that 5 years of speaking into a speakerphone never quite could. His second marriage lasted over 50 years, a number that stops conversations when you say it out loud. He battled heart disease and colon cancer in his final years without making it a press tour. He returned to voice Charlie for both film adaptations, because some roles don't let go, even when you try to leave them. John Forsythe passed away on April 1st, 2010, at age 92. The best chapter doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it shows up in your 60s, wearing someone else's name.
Is that your friend?
Don't worry, I'm not gonna share you with her.
Number 6. Tanya Roberts, the last angel, and the one the headlines got wrong. She was only 25 when she joined in the show's dying final season, appearing in just 16 episodes as Julie Rogers, the very last angel ever recruited to the Townsend Agency. The show ended. Her career, to the surprise of many, did not. First came Sheena, the 1984 jungle adventure film. Then she became a Bond villain's associate in A View to a Kill, the kind of role that follows certain actresses permanently, whether they want it to or not. Then came That 70s Show, where she played Midge Pinciotti in the Wisconsin basement where an entirely new generation found her, with no idea she had been anywhere else first. 4 decades, 3 completely different cultural moments, and an audience for each one that barely knew about the others. Roberts had devoted herself to one man, her husband Barry Roberts, for over 3 decades. His death left a silence her final years never quite filled. She lived quietly, surrounded by animals, with a companion who knew the version of her that Hollywood had long since stopped looking for. When she died, the headlines got it visibly, publicly wrong, reporting the wrong cause, then correcting it. The real story was more mundane and more quietly devastating than anything a publicist would construct. Tanya Roberts passed away on January 4th, 2021, at age 65. The last angel was gone, and a striking number of people had genuinely forgotten she was still here.
Which reminds me, where is Bosley?
He'll be arriving shortly.
Number 7. Shelley Hack, the angel who walked into a different world entirely. She arrived at Charlie's Angels already globally famous, not for acting, but for a face. The Chanel No. 5 perfume campaign had made her one of the most recognized images in the world before she ever connected it to a name. She stepped into season 4 as Tiffany Wells, sophisticated, cerebral, the intellectual one, and stayed for 26 episodes before the network moved on. Today, in 2026, she is 79 years old. There were films afterward, a Martin Scorsese picture, a cult horror title, but the reinvention that actually defined her had nothing to do with screen credits. It took her somewhere almost no former primetime star goes, into human rights work. Real academic credentials, willingness to travel to regions still marked by recent conflict, and a patience for work that generates no ratings and receives no applause from anyone who watched her on television. The distance between Tiffany Wells and that work is so vast, it almost defies the connective tissue of a single biography. She has been married to the same man since 1989. They have a daughter. The marriage has quietly outlasted most Hollywood careers, most Hollywood friendships, and most Hollywood certainties about what lasts and what doesn't. Tiffany Wells was written as the brainy angel. Shelley Hack proved the character was underselling her by a considerable distance.
Well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Bosley.
Number 8. David Doyle, the last one standing and the secret he kept on screen. At 47, David Doyle was already older than nearly everyone on set when Charlie's Angels began. He played John Bosley, bumbling, lovable, endlessly patient, the only man regularly visible alongside the Angels, and appeared in 110 episodes without ever quite stealing the spotlight. That was the point. Bosley was the background. Doyle made that background warm enough to actually live in. There was a specific craft to that, to being the reliable, unshowy center of a show built entirely around glamour. And it's a craft that rarely gets discussed because it doesn't photograph well. Before Charlie's Angels, his personal life had already carried a grief that most people around him never fully knew, a loss that happened years before production began, that didn't heal on any predictable schedule, and that shadowed the warmth everyone on screen could plainly see. He built a second life anyway, carefully, quietly, steadily, and the role that introduced him to an entirely new generation of fans had nothing to do with crime, glamour, or the Angels at all. He became the voice of Scrappy Doo, reaching millions of children who had absolutely no idea he had once worked alongside the most glamorous women in the history of American television. Two completely separate audiences, decades apart, both of whom felt they knew him, neither of whom knew the full story. David Doyle passed away on February 26, 1997, at age 67. Until the very end, he was still making children laugh and carrying, quietly, everything he'd always carried. And that's the Townsend Agency. 8 people whose lives after the cameras stopped were more dramatic, more surprising, and more genuinely human than anything the writers put on the page. If this took you somewhere you weren't expecting, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more cast stories coming, and trust us, some of them are even stranger than this one.